a role that has not been tried and tested, and within the British culture. The question that I'd like to ask the candidates is, what might you learn from the American system of the appointed commissioner? And to what extent you feel your role might be compromised by the politicization of that function?
Thank you. Did you understand the question? Good. David?
The similarity is in the name. The other similarity is that people thought, isn't it good to have an elected role? In the US, the person, in fact, is not even in the name, because in the US, the role I'm thinking of, I think, is sheriff. And in the US, the sheriff role is the head of the police service, i.e. the head of the constabulary, if you like, the chief constable. Quite rightly, in this country, we have moved away from thinking that you should have anything whatsoever to do with operations. It would be an outrage if any one of us on this table were able to, having been elected, say, well, I think that you should be arresting. I mean, Michael Moore would be the first person I'd arrest. You can go and arrest that person until you sit outside his house or whatever. Quite outrageous, and it's never ever been part of the plan. Now, in the US, the most senior civil servant, if you like, for policing is elected. Now, the US do a lot of things very differently to the way they do things here, and I'm quite pleased that they do what they do over there in their way, and we do what we do over here in our way, and I don't think there is any case whatsoever to have the person in charge of the operational policing as a politician. And as Sherma has already said, in Hertfordshire, that's certainly there isn't an ability of the law to do it, and quite rightly that needs to be a very distinct role, and certainly shall so remain.
It's very different what they do in America from what they do here. It is that this role is operational, whereas obviously in America it's a whole different ballgame. They are law enforcement people. They are not politicians. I wouldn't be actually because we're having, even though I didn't agree with police and crime commissioners originally. We will make the best of this, and we'll look after our communities, whichever structure that we find ourselves. But you did ask the question: how will it be politicised? Is that what you said? You asked the question. How? Was it you that asked it? How will it be politicised? Is that what you said? That's what you asked. I think that there will be issues. Sorry?
How will you
avoid? It's going to be quite difficult because if we get a political candidate, if we get a councillor or a political person from a party, as people have said, I've already said I will try to keep politics out of it because I think it needs to be. But we're going to have a bit of a job because one of the examples being is that there is a big difference between David and I. In a lot of ways we agree with how we would go forward with the Police and Crime Commissioner role here. But politically we disagree on how we might do it in terms of finding the savings that are needed. So politics comes into that. I know that I would not be looking at, and I'm using the word privatisation because that's what it is as far as I'm concerned. We're using different language. So politics is going to come in there. As far as I'm concerned, I would not want to privatise the services. No part of the police, I think, should be privatised because it's a public service. Those police do an absolutely brilliant job, and I wouldn't like it to be compromised by bringing in an organisation that has to make a profit for its shareholders. And I think once that's going on, then I would have a problem with it. So I think in some ways that's bringing politics into it. But I think for me that is a good thing because I really do believe in our force and what they do, and I don't want them to be diluted by people who might end up coming in on a minimum wage. That to me, I'm not happy with. I would think that in order to find the savings, the organisation would come in and make huge changes. I don't know what the result of Lincolnshire is going to be. I think the jury's still out over that. I don't know enough about the arrangements because I've not been involved in it. I really don't know what's gone on there, what the deal is. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't really want to lose the good staff that we've got. So in that way, I guess I'm using politics in that, and I think that would be a good thing, because those are my values, that's my belief, is that we don't use private companies to run a public service which is for the safety of our communities.
Thank you. Paul?
I mean, I think to an extent, well, about the American thing first, clearly there is a significant difference between the UK and the US now, and there will remain a difference in the future, in that the person elected is not in operational charge of the police. However, on the issue of politicisation of policing, I think we are already in the situation where policing is politicised. You've only got to read a couple of issues of the Daily Mail to realise that there was pressure being applied in terms of operational policing. One of the things that I've always been quite concerned about this role is that devolution of politicization of policing to a much more local level, because I think there is a real danger that that could happen. When the local paper is the paper that influences the electorate, that influences the PCC, that then it looks at influencing policy to adjust to that media pressure. There is a danger there, and it's going to be necessary to have the Police and Crime Commissioner who is very strong and very capable of resisting that kind of media attention. And my concern is that if we don't get that, what happens next?
Thank you.